All right, guys. Happy Monday. We're back. Been an amazing weekend. How has your weekend been for you guys?
Good. Lots of snow.
More
You got
snow?
snow?
But we're
I don't
good.
have snow
Yeah, we
here.
got snow. I tried to get my snowblower going yesterday. I think I need a new spark plug. So I
Mm.
shoveled like a peasant.
When are you going to do Vindicate's Snow Angel reel and put yourself on a reel? Did you see that? Where he's
Oh,
doing burpees in the
yes.
snow. And so, I mean, if you have snow, when are you going to do that? In shorts. I think they have to be short shorts.
5-inch
Never.
inches.
Yeah.
No burpees in the snow.
God. No plans for that. That's for sure.
Right. All right.
plans
I mean,
for
you can
that.
wear a hat. He lets you wear a hat. I
Right.
think you can wear gloves, maybe some
Was
high
it shirtless
socks.
too?
Not shirtless, but it has to be shorts.
So what? How many burpees was this? What's the actual
He just did
challenge
2.
there? Oh,
He did
okay.
2.
Come
Yeah,
on.
I'll try to find it as we're chatting or whatever, but I'll bring it up.
Come on, Travis.
Yeah, I know, right? Joseph Ramirez, what's going on? Jody Lynn, hello. KDL, what's going on? Megan, always here to support. Love ya. These guys are regulars now. Hell yeah. Listen,
Yeah, we live on this show.
Listen, I mean, they are welcome anytime, and anytime that the three of us can get together and talk about primal mobility, it's the jam. So we don't ever miss an opportunity like this. So I figured it would only be perfect to invite you guys on because we have started a new cycle. And with Primal, the best part about it, if you're not following primal.mobility, you should, because I mean, you give so much freaking information about what you offer. It's amazing. If you're not doing it, you're missing out because this is so much information. And then when you join the group, like you get even more information. So I don't know, whoever wants to start, break down the new cycle. It says tomorrow we launch, which would be today, the movement control cycle. So who wants to break this down for us and explain what this is all about?
Go ahead, Matt.
I suppose I'll take this one.
I was trying to see if Steve wanted to talk first because
Hey man, by all means, if you want the floor. Yeah, definitely. So the cycles that we follow the different, they're biased around the particular pillars within the primal method. So there's 5 pillars within the primal method, but there are 4 cycles that we go through in a macro cycle. So we're 4 different mesocycles within a macro cycle. If that's confusing, let me know. I don't know if people understand that, like the strength programming jargon.
Probably not. Remember, this is the show where you get to nerd out, and talking too much is welcomed here. So break it down for us.
Excellent. So a macro cycle is basically like just a giant window of what your training looks like over an extended period of time. It's basically like the biggest bucket, and your smaller training blocks, your smaller training phases fit within the macro cycle for the bigger picture. So you kind of look at the macro cycle, what do we want to achieve? Break it down into its mesocycles, and then you can even look at microcycles, which is like a week's worth of training as opposed to like a 6-week mesocycle. Microcycle, mesocycle, macrocycle.
And why is it important to break that down so much? Because some people just focus on the bigger picture, but sometimes we need to narrow it down, but then sometimes we almost narrow too much. So why are each level of that so important to pay attention to?
Well, I mean, stimulus and adaptation as a whole, right? Like we need to understand the stimulus versus recovery. Are we actually going to be placing the stimulus in a way periodically throughout your training that it's going to make sure that you adapt appropriately and then reapply a stimulus so that you can continue to progress linearly, so to speak? Or are you just gonna like hit on the ankles one day and then like 2-3 weeks later hit on them again, and like there's no strategy behind it, right? So basically what we do with that is like we reverse engineer all that to make sure that we're kind of really forcing results as opposed to just hoping and wishing that things actually work out, right? So it's really important to actually have a strategy behind your training. Movement in general is always going to be extremely important. Like doing something is better than nothing, but for us, like, this is what we do. People pay us and come to our program to get results. So we got to make sure that we're putting things strategically in place to really make sure that we drive adaptation and drive results. So basically, to take a step back again, we have 5 pillars within the primal method, but we only bias 4 of them within our mesocycles. And the reason behind that is because one of them is kind of baked into everything that we do. It's always present and it's always a big focus. So our pillars are awareness and connection, which is the one that's baked into everything that we do. It's basically like proprioception on steroids, like really learning how to understand where your body is in space and how to engage your muscles and control your movements and become aware of your body, or connect to your body within those deeper ranges of motion that are often very weak and you have very little understanding of how to utilize. That's baked into everything that we do. Every exercise that you see programmed, every video that you're going to see attached to our exercises, there's like deeply rooted within that is me trying to express how to take advantage of that particular pillar. And then we have build new ranges, and these are the ones that we bias within our cycles. We have build new ranges, which can be seen more as like a flexibility style of training, stability, movement control, and strength. Everything that we do guides us towards strength. So at the end of our macro cycle, we hit on strength, and that's kind of like our process that we go through. That being said, everything that we do is still geared towards strength. So as I said at the beginning, it's a biased mesocycle, which means you're gonna have more exercises, more tools, more features within the program that are going to help push forward that particular narrative. So instead of like 3 strength focused exercises within the workout, you're going to see maybe 1 or 2 and more exercises that are biased towards actually developing control within those deeper ranges of motion. So a lot of people will confuse or maybe just misunderstand what control really is. And the way we try to simplify it as much as possible, and the way we kind of approach it is like, as your muscles lengthen, so as you go through any movement pattern, your muscles are lengthening and shortening, right? Once you reach certain positions, certain muscles are lengthening, certain muscles are shortening. You need to be able to control your ability to get into those deeper ranges as the muscles lengthen and reach their weaker positions, right? So that's kind of like the entire purpose behind this cycle right now, is to teach you how to get into those weaker positions, those weaker lengths of muscle tissues without losing your positioning and losing your cool as you go through within them, right? So it's kind of like, if you think about it, sinking into a deep squat position and like being super weak in the hole, like really at that bottom position, and just you have to bounce in order to like have the strength to get back up. You need to build that momentum, right? So like if you were to do like look at it from like a 1 rep max PR attempt versus like a 60% attempt, you can do a pause squat with 60% and you have good control. You can manage, like you can pause down there, you can keep everything engaged and push your way out. But with like a 1 rep max PR attempt, you don't have that strength to pause and control in that deep position. So you got to kind of like, you shouldn't, but like almost let go of tension, bounce a little bit, and use that stretch reflex to bounce yourself back up. It's kind of like the same kind of concept. We want to teach you how to like maintain that control all the way through those ranges of motion as your muscles lengthen and shorten when you're reaching those weaker positions.
So is that where you hear like the butt wink, for instance? Is that where you see that breakdown of like there's control, then you don't have any more control at that bottom because you need that little bounce to get yourself up? Is that the position of the end range that you're talking about within that squat, and why control is so important? It's not just from where you start, but it is through the entire range of motion instead of relying on that bounce to get you up, because it's not really the strength that's getting you up. It's the momentum of the bounce that's getting you up.
Right, exactly. I mean, the butt wink itself, there's a lot to talk about there. I could have a whole podcast just
The butt wink.
Yeah, exactly. That's a fascinating topic to me. I love that. But anything squat related, I could talk about for ages. But that's exactly it. Like, we want to make sure that, and we're not, again, like, I think we've chatted about this in the past, but we're not training absolute strength. We're training like very foundational, fine-tuned strength. It's biomechanics, right? Once you start training those biomechanics, developing strength, like the foundational strength that we really work on, that shit carries over into your absolute strength, which is like how much weight can you move on a barbell? You know what I mean? Like, we're not training that in our programming. We're training like very fine-tuned stuff, which often feels far more difficult. Like, in some cases,
way more difficult. I did those moves today, and I actually introduced a couple of them. I've been slowly introducing a couple of them to my client as well. And we finished some of the movements today, and he was like, my legs are really sore and my hips are sore, but I didn't do anything. And I'm like, but you did. But you did. Welcome.
Exactly. And careful. That's how it starts. That's how I started Primal, was testing my clients. But that's, there's many days where I'd prefer to go and just find a heavy 1 rep max on a back squat than I would, 2 by 8 adductor liftoffs. It's just, it's so much more challenging because we're really putting ourselves into ranges of motion again that we don't have good control over. Our nervous system doesn't really understand how to work them very well, and we're trying to engage our muscles within those weak ass ranges of motion. It's really, really challenging and awful sometimes. But in
Travis,
the best way.
We know why your hips are sore. Oh, Travis. Yes, those hip hurdles are intense. If you have not joined Primal and have not experienced a hip hurdle, you are missing out. I will try to find that video. For whatever reason, my videos are not able to load right now. But Steve, talk us through the hip hurdle and why it's so difficult and why it's so beneficial at the same time.
I mean, I can't tell you why it's difficult. It's just hard. It's one of those things. It's just like a range of motion you don't train, right? I mean, it's very seldom in CrossFit do we ever like really break down anything to that level where you're gonna try to target the weakest muscles. So doing something like a hip hurdle, I think the most recent one we did were the kneeling hip hurdle. Was that the one? I think that was programmed a couple of days ago. We were in a half kneeling position. You just hip reapers. That's even worse. The reapers are worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you see the name reapers, you know you're gonna
you run
at some point.
I try to run, and whenever I see the word reaper, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this today.
Yeah,
but I do. Yeah,
they're so good, and it literally is like eating your vegetables almost. It's like you have to do it. You don't want to, but once you did it, you're glad you did, right? You're like, I'm glad I did that thing.
Yeah. Love the analogy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
need more vegetables.
It's very true.
You got to eat your vegetables if you want to grow big and strong, right?
For dinner last week.
Well, I mean, that's what happens. But I mean, like ultimately, the hip hurdles, man, or the hip reapers, hurdles, anything like that. It's just like doing a car on steroids, right? So you're doing like hip cars. I feel like I've done those. We've done scap cars and CrossFit. It's not uncommon to see those things, especially in a warm up for pull ups, whatever. So you might see something like hip cars in a warm up, but hip reapers just like that, and then doing tempo is just like it's menacing and it sucks, but at the same time, it is the stuff that actually works. I can't begin to explain the amount of difference I've felt in my squat in the last 8 months since like really leaning into mobility training. I'm like starting to load stuff in particular ways, mostly Zercher, but sometimes other ways. And like I'm approaching like a 90% squat and my knees don't cave in, and I actually can feel feedback while I'm doing it. I'm not just like, again, bouncing out of the bottom and praying that I can come back up. It's like I actually feel active in those positions. And that is because you're doing things like hip reapers or adductor liftoffs, things like that, where you're targeting those small muscles instead of just like hoping that they can support your heavy ass squat when you get there. But man, when your big muscles are the same as your little muscles and you're working them all the time, it feels so powerful. So
Travis, for anyone on the fence about signing up, I've done pliabilities and go what? They don't even come close to primal mobility. No questions asked. You heard it here first. But that is also the hardest part about this for me is how slow and intentional every single movement needs to be. And I feel the benefit, but also it's so challenging for me. And when I realize how weak my hips actually are, I knew that I dealt with pain, but I don't think I realized how weak they actually are, which is reason that I was having so much pain. So today, for instance, it was the breathing frog. Now you're in a frog position, and then during the contraction, you're trying to squeeze the floor together underneath your knees. So you're contracting as hard as you can, and then you're releasing down into that deeper squat, taking a breath, and then doing it the same way. Being in those really deep ranges of motion, which I know in the beginning, Matt, when I first started, it was like, it's not about how low I can get into those range of motions. It's more about how I can control in those range of motions. So now doing this for so long, I am now working in those very low ranges of motion that I have and still doing the contractions and stuff like that. Today was probably the hardest breathing frog that I've ever done. And I felt a little bit of pinching on the last couple. I think it was like 6 reps that we were supposed to do today, I think. And I think it was a RPE of 8. So it was really intense, like really big contraction. I know you have explained the pinch before, but can you kind of break that down a little bit more as to why we don't want to feel the pinch, and like the cramping is okay, but the pinching is not, and why maybe somebody like me that is so weak in that position, why I would probably experience some sort of pinching.
Yeah. So I don't know if I think we've chatted about this as well on one of the previous episodes, but a lot of what we do, and I actually made a post about this in the community last week, I think, that we're not like with Primal, we're not just training our muscle tissues, our tendons, our joints, stuff like that. It really also is a game of influencing the nervous system. That's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Huge part of it, actually, because that's actually what, at the end of the day, has the biggest influence over your range of motion is your nervous system. After a while, the tissues obviously have a big part of it as well, but the nervous system is what truly governs what you will or won't have access to at the end of the day. And so it's a big part of it. And if we're approaching pain or discomfort, or like, especially ranges of motion that like have that pinchy pain, which is almost like a little bit shocking. It's like a little like immediate feedback to your brain that's like, oh, something's wrong here. Like, that's a little scary. That's like a quick shot of information to the nervous system, basically saying like, these ranges of motion are potentially dangerous. Right? Like, logically, you can think that doesn't necessarily mean danger or damage or incoming injury, but your nervous system can't think logically. It just thinks in terms of like pain, discomfort, and lack of control and stuff like that. And so basically, if you're approaching pain and experiencing that type of pain, like bad pain, with your training, with your movements, or like those deeper ranges of motion, your nervous system's never really going to catch on and be like, okay, we're safe here. We can open up and gain access to better, deeper, like more quality range of motion. So that's why it's like the cramping is fine. That's a temporary thing. That's actually your nervous system trying to fucking figure out how to contract muscles within these deeper ranges of motion. But like that pinching pain or like the nervy pain, that's the type of stuff where your nervous system's like puts up the red flag, right? So that's why early on it was like, when you're feeling these pinchy symptoms, this high levels of pain, discomfort, we need to step away and like back off a little bit. And that's why for you, I'm like, nothing past 85% stretch is really necessary from like your hamstrings, your adductors, stuff like that. We need to focus more on like getting strong and controlled within the like that 85% range, because your nervous system is going to start to catch on like, okay, we're solid here. We're good in deeper ranges of motion. And then from there, like you're going to find that 85% basically expands.
Right.
Your new 85% isn't the same as your 85% 2-3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, even though you're constantly training within your 85%, that's expanding. You're getting better within that, and you're getting more mobility results. And that's why I think I replied to one of your stories the other day where it's like, it never gets easier.
No.
It's just like you're just training the same thing within deeper ranges of motion, and that intensity just becomes more challenging the deeper you go. There's so many opportunities to say like that's what she said jokes, but
we're keeping a professional over here. No.
That's my life. yeah. Watch your mouth.
But that is, I think that's the struggle, or that's the realization, I guess I should say more, is it's the realization that it's never going to get better because the expectation is always rising and the desire is always rising. The challenge is always rising. So I want to get strong in this aspect over here so that I can be stronger in my squats, be more comfortable underneath the bar and whatever. But then once I get comfortable at this weight, what do I want to do? I want to get fucking stronger. I want to lift more. I want to move better. So the bar is always rising. So it's always going to be challenging. It's the same way of going from a strict pull up to a kipping pull up to a butterfly pull up to a chest to bar to a, you know what I mean, to a bar muscle up. Like we're always moving that bar. So we do always want to be challenged, you know, to that next level. A lot of the movements I don't do with weights, but a lot of the movements can be done and should eventually be done with weights, you know, to, I mean, I know Steve is always doing the Jefferson curls. Shout out to Becca. She like showed you both up today in the stories. If you haven't gone and seen that, that was amazing that she did that. But when
her range of motion is stupid on those.
Oh my God, when she bent over.
She's like doing touch and go Jefferson curls.
It was amazing. She just showed you guys out.
I'm like, bruh, what is this?
So when do you, obviously your answer is going to be, it depends on the person or whatever. But for someone like me, you know, today I did the gliders with some weight. So I just held a med ball to my chest. It was a 20-pound med ball or whatever. And I did the gliders that we had today versus just doing it without any weight. For someone like me, how would you as a coach instruct me to start adding a little bit of weight to my movements? Because I've been doing the movements for as long as I have been, a little over 2 months now.
I think once I start seeing some confidence in your movement, it's like, it's a no-brainer to me that it's a good time to start moving up. You know, like if you're doing body weight in the first week and your knees are shaking like crazy and like your face is like, and you're clearly struggling to get into those deeper ranges, you're not spending much time within like that deep stretched position and you lose control with that. And then 4 weeks later, we see that you're easily pausing in that deep stretch position. Your knee isn't shaking whatsoever. Like you look comfortable there. It's like, yeah, it's like, let's load these up. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know, and as you improve, you'll notice this for sure. As you improve, and if you lean on the coaching aspect in range program with what we do, I get super nitpicky too. You know, so it's like, hey, I saw that you rotated your hip on 4 of the reps here. You easily could have avoided that. Let's work on that next time. Or like, you know, everything looks really good, but if I were to get super nitpicky, let's turn your torso in this direction, or really focus more on aiming your belly button to that straight ahead or whatever, you know, just like little cues that I might offer just to really get nitpicky. And that's like another way, because you don't always need to load to make something more challenging or more difficult, right? Yeah. Sometimes that's not even an option. Like if you're training at home and you don't have anything, or if you're at a friend's house or a hotel or whatever, you're on the road at the airport, you don't always have something to work with in terms of like equipment. So you can definitely make this shit a lot harder just by the intention of what you're doing. And this is why we focus so much of that in our videos where we're coaching and cueing things. It's like, let's highlight how to really make an exercise spicy. Like you could you could easily do like the breathing frog exercise where you're contracting your hips and like engaging it and whatever. But like, if you're saying like, okay, I want you to tilt the pelvis this way, and I want you to press your feet into the floor, and then squeeze the floor with your knees and contract your core and this and that. And it's like, okay, now you just made the exercise significantly more challenging without changing anything really. It's just the intention behind it. So I guess in a way you're changing everything.
Yeah, everything. Again, I'm still worried about adding weight. Yeah, I am too. And I'm starting to realize that I am still very, very scared to deadlift. So I went into the gym the other day and I just did 55 pounds, very slow, sets of 3. I think I might have even gotten up to sets of 5 or whatever. And I am very scared to be in a deadlift position. And again, it's such a mind fuck to me because I can power clean and I'm comfortable power cleaning, but going from the top of the deadlift back down to the ground and back up, that hinging position absolutely freaks me out and terrifies me. It's the same thing with a burpee. It's the same thing with all of those movements of the hinge position and when to get down and how to get down to the ground or moving weight or anything like that. And I find myself overcompensating for that stuff too. Still, if I'm in a workout and I am picking up dumbbells because I have to do a shoulder press or whatever, I feel myself leaning my body more to my left side because I'm scared about my right side, because that's where all of my injuries are. That's where everything is coming from and whatever. And I've started to do those hinges to the wall, those couple reps. I think what we say 20 or 30 reps or whatever. I've started to do those, but that's as much confidence as I have. And I'm telling you, I'm like hinging this much. I'm barely even moving, but I am still so terrified to do it. And I think that I'm just getting so much in my head when it comes to that movement that I'm not even trying. You know what I mean?
You're still terrified to do the unloaded hinging with your 10.
No, so that one is okay because I'm literally hinging like this much. So I'm not, right. I haven't moved myself away from the wall far enough to get into an actual hinge position. I'm just enough away where I can set my butt back, touches the wall, and it stands up. I haven't gotten to a point where I'm actually hinging down into that position past a couple inches, if that. And so I can just feel myself getting so terrified and still so scared of it that I'm not even trying. I'm not even getting, allowing myself to just get past that. Because I don't want to get hurt again.
Oh, for sure. So that's possibly too advanced for you at the moment. You know what I mean? So if the small range of motion hinge is you're confident there, that feels good. You're able to go through the movement, you get good feedback from your tissues, you're getting good strong contractions from the hips, the glutes. Then it's okay, let's try and expand that a bit. So can you take an extra 6-inch step forward and hinge from there so you get more range of motion? Or another, so that would be a way to progress that, more range of motion progression. Or you could stay with your feet that distance and hold a 20-pound kettlebell in your hands and just hinge that small amount of movement loaded so that you're every pain-free rep is proof to your nervous system that we're good here, we're safe. So it's you'll start to get the hang of it, but you need to find logical progressions on the way there, right?
Yeah.
It's that's the nature of rehab, basically, is find the most logical, safest, comfortable, confident entry point and build up from there. And you need to find good progressions along the way that fit you and your adaptation as well. Yeah. So I'd say play around with those two things, something that's light enough for you to still feel confident with, but heavy enough to just apply a new stimulus to your body where you're loading that pattern now, or you're going through deeper ranges of motion. So I would say do the same, but hold a 20-pound kettlebell and just feel that. It sounds like the eccentric portion is what scares the shit out of you. So that's what I would want to expose more of, but I feel in a very controlled way.
Yeah. I also feel the pain when I take that first lift off the ground. So if I'm at the bottom of my setup and that first little lift off of the barbell, the minute that the barbell gets off the ground is when I feel it in my back. And I feel it in not so much in my hip anymore, but I feel it instantly in my back. So the minute that it comes off the ground and I feel it, then I try to overcompensate for it, or I get too scared and I put it down. So it is from the top down, but it also is that like lift off from the ground. So I don't know if it's because I'm still lifting with my back and I'm not pushing through my feet, or if it's just that's how my nervous system responds because it's been responding like that. But that's where I feel it the most. And that's where because I also, when I went back to CrossFit and I was doing deadlifts, my coach stopped me and was like, this is all wrong. You're going to hurt yourself. And I'm like, well, I already have. And he's like, well, you're going to continue hurting yourself because for some reason, and again, it doesn't always make sense, but for some reason, I was scared that I was going to hurt myself. So I created a setup that doesn't actually help me and it actually hurts me, where my hips were much higher than my back was. And I wasn't sitting in that correct position. You know what I mean? So it was like, I overcompensated so much, but I think I also put myself in a position where I was actually making my back worse. So, but I have a coach now that like, but I think also too, that might be what it is too, because I got such a negative feedback. And again, this is just mindset bullshit, but like, because I got such a negative feedback from him, it was like, I shouldn't be doing this because I'm going to land back on the couch on a heating pad. You know, so it really is that mindset of like getting over being terrified. Cause I'm terrified again. And it really sucks because I felt like we had been working for the last 2 months to really get me like starting to build confidence. And like we said, like it's always going to progress and it's always going to get more challenging and whatever. But I feel a little like paralyzed when it comes to those type of movements.
So was that recently?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I hate fear mongering so much. There's really no reason to be saying like, you're going to hurt yourself and you're going to keep hurting yourself. You could like, we're doing fucking Jefferson curls with over 200 pounds for reps.
Yeah.
Like, why are you going to hurt yourself? You know, I don't know how much you had on the bar. Like, potentially you could hurt yourself if you weren't prepared for it, but that's what injuries are. You basically, if the load exceeds load bearing capacity, that's what an injury is. It's like you weren't ready for that yet, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So in my mind, that is no reason to say you're definitely going to keep injuring yourself. Like that just, as you noticed right there, it just kind of set you back mentally, which what a lot of pain is like, if there's fear there, then pain it's like, it feeds off of that, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, what I would say is like, if like find the positions or the points within the pattern that cause you fear and pain and prove to yourself that it's not dangerous. Find a way to fucking prove it to yourself. So if like that first initial pickup off the floor is the scary part, we need to find a way to expose that in a controlled setting so that you can do it without pain, prove to your nervous system it's not dangerous, prove to your body that you can withstand it, and then you just kind of fucking build up from there. So like what I would do is set up like an empty bar or like with 10-pound plates on it and put them on a stack of 2 bumpers. So you're like, the bar is basically at your knees at this point.
Okay.
And then you perform the lift off from there. You'll see that maybe it does cause pain, maybe it doesn't. Okay, then like, let's try a little higher. Find it where it doesn't cause you pain or that discomfort, and then perform like a bunch of reps there. Prove to yourself it's not dangerous, it's not scary. Get more confident there, and then drop it down by a plate. And then, you know, it's like the basic progression stuff.
Yeah.
Your nervous system it's like very simple, as complex as it really is. It's like, it's pretty simple too. It's like, we just need to prove to it that it's there's these things aren't inherently dangerous just because you had injured yourself or had hurt yourself in those positions in the past. Doesn't mean that those positions are dangerous to you. It just means what you had done at that point you weren't ready for. Yeah. Right. And you spent over a decade dealing with that shit. So it's like, those are deeply rooted things, right? There's trauma there. So you got to kind of like, we're therapists at Primal, really.
Listen, I'm I'm going through a lot of therapy and letting go of a lot of bullshit. So why not add this to the top of the list of as
Yeah,
part
make
of
that
it?
deadlift your bitch.
Hell yeah. There's Joseph, make it that deadlift your bitch. Yep. Your mom, have you tried any core activation before?
I like
As
the
well.
handle.
Yes, I also am realizing, and I think you do, every person that goes through, whether it's CrossFit, regular bodybuilding, strength training, you know, whatever, is that I'm realizing that I'm very weak in a lot of positions. So as much as I feel like that I'm able to hold stuff, I'm not. So my lats are very weak. My shoulders are very weak. You know what I mean? My hips are very weak. All of those things play a bigger factor in what we're trying to accomplish when we start to lift heavy or we start to want to move with more intensity, because everything, like we were doing kips today, you know, very slow kipping swings, but not starting with the legs, like really kipping from the shoulders. And I'm realizing that my right shoulder does not like this position right here where my head is through. I feel it all in the front part of my shoulder. And I'm like, okay, lift offs it is, you know, all of the stuff with the PVC pipe, like all of those overhead stuff or whatever, because I'm starting to realize that, oh, I thought I was pretty strong, you know, in my shoulders, and I'm not. So it is really breaking everything down to strengthen everything. And I think that we all focus on those really big muscles. You know, like I want my quads to be really strong, and I want my ass to be really strong, and I want my biceps to be really strong, but everything needs to be strong, you know? And that's why working with you guys, like that is where my eyes are like open now, and my awareness is open, because it's not just those big muscles that are going to make the foundation of my body strong. We have to do that with the joints too. And then for me in my journey, like I need to strengthen my fucking nervous system. That's really what I need to strengthen, because she weak and she is very anxious all the time. And so that is more of the strength that I need to go through personally within my journey, is building that up so that I find safety and confidence in everything that I do. Your mom, I only say that because I have issues with bracing my lower core, even if my upper is strong. And then that ends up affecting my pulling from the ground. I used to always tweak my back. So do you want to talk about the lower core? Let's talk about the lower core. Steve, you want to tell us about the lower core and
Harry Potter muscle, the quadratus lumborum. No, I don't know. I think it's super important. Like you talk about bracing and things like that. I think a lot of the time we can just get carried away with moving without intention. I know that's always been my Achilles heel, if we were me on the anatomy train, is just you can get caught up in the workouts. You know, if you're doing Diane 21:59 handstand push-ups, deadlifts at 225, you're going to want to move for speed and you're going to want to move fast, right? So you're just going to start yanking that off the ground, go, go, go. You're not going to worry about hip extension too much. As long as you get the rep, you're good. You're going to be banging that thing and down, clanging and banging. And I find it's those moments where you're moving for speed, but not with intention, that not to say it's dangerous, because I still subscribe to the idea that there's no really dangerous positions. It's just a lack of preparedness, right? So you go into Diane and you go deadlift the barbell, deadlift 135, deadlift 225. You're like, I'm good to go. Let's go. Press the clock. I'm ready. Did I do any handstand push-ups? No, I did a couple of PVC pipe pass-throughs, and all of a sudden, you know, those things happen. So when it comes to things like core bracing, I feel like whenever I am in the mode of, hey, I need to brace more, the switch that flips in my brain is I need to move with more intention, right? So then you start being a little bit more proprioceptive. I don't know if that's the word to use, but you're trying to tune into how you're moving, not just that you're moving, if that makes sense. So that I think I've avoided the question altogether by not saying whether, like, you know, core bracing is something we should do or not. But I've always felt in my experience, it's like that's kind of when I slow down, right? And then you kind of build up from there, and then you go, okay, I'll do a couple of deadlifts while I'm really focusing on bracing my core, pushing against that belt, getting nice and tight. You're like, okay, that feels good. And then you can start ramping up the speed and applying that to the rest of the workout. And then all of a sudden you go from a place of lack of preparedness to you are prepared, because that's exactly how you've kind of built up the stimulus, and now you're ready to rock. So I don't know.
When did you realize for you, Steve, that there wasn't such a thing as a dangerous position?
Jeez. I don't think it was. I don't think it was like a moment. It was, well, there probably was a moment, but it was like little by little, then all at once, if that makes sense. Like playing with the Jefferson curl as an example of putting your back in just like extreme flexion. As someone who has struggled with back injuries, I was never really like afraid of spinal flexion, but just, I knew logically, like, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? You've watched some people deadlift some insane weights. Do they have a perfectly straight back? No. They're like a little bit of rounding and stuff like that. It's not the worst thing in the world. And then you see Matt, zerchering with the most rounded back. And then eventually kind of, putting it all together and seeing it like, okay, it kind of makes sense. And then possibly if I could pick a moment where it actually came together is when I was going through the PRIMAL certification course and just constantly being reminded there are no dangerous positions. It's just the lack of preparedness. You can have a rounded back. The problem is that what happens when you do round your back, it's usually what causes it? It's usually an excessive load, right? When you're maxing out your deadlift. So the first time that you actually get spinal flexion in a deadlift is at your max weight. So 400 pounds, say. Okay. Did you warm up with spinal flexion at all? No, I warmed up with perfect flat back, lumbar extension, everything was straight, perfect.
The shoulders were back, the chest was up, everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, once your mechanics start to break down, then it pushes into areas of your body that are not prepared for that load. So, I mean, one could say that if you warmed up your deadlift with Jefferson curls, that's like, are you afraid of spinal flexion? Probably not, if you were to build in that regard. So I don't know. I feel like definitely just getting constantly reminded is kind of when I was like, okay, it's starting to click now. And then actually taking that and applying it to training myself, I was like, oh, is it funny that once I start training Jefferson curls, once I start training side bends, when I start training thoracic extension
we go lateral.
And getting my spine rotating side to side, up, down, not just in one plane, in all the planes, that I no longer have back issues.
Do you guys think that, and I'm trying to figure out this question out loud, so bear with me if it doesn't make sense right away. Do you guys think that certain techniques that have been put into place, like a proper deadlift, for instance, has made us all more susceptible to injury? Like you were just talking about, like the perfect back or the perfect position or whatever. And we're so worried about any sort of curve in the spine, but the spine is meant to flex, is meant to be in flexion. It's meant to be, we're supposed to go lateral. We're supposed to move in so many different positions. We're not supposed to be so linear. So, and I don't know if this question is making sense, but do we feel like that the technique has become too rigid so that it has actually set us all up more for injuries as we are trying to prevent injuries? If that makes sense.
Yeah. If you look at like the history of the whole knee over toe perspective in the fitness industry, a lot of that came from this dude. His name was Dr. Klein in the 60s. I've done some research on this. In the 60s, he was actually doing some research and like kind of held an in-house study that tested the amount of stress being placed on the knee as it went past 90 degrees in flexion, especially under load. So like the deeper the squat, the more the knee went over the toe, the more stress was being placed on the knee. That's what they found within that test. And so he kind of published a study about that exactly. And at the time, the fitness industry was super like in its infancy. Like nobody really knew much of anything fitness related back then in the 60s. And I think it was like a super popular magazine took it and ran with it. And within a week, millions of people had seen the article, but kind of like took it out of context. So yes, what they found was accurate, that there's increased stress placed to the knee as you go into a deeper squat, especially like a front loaded squat or, you know, a heel elevated squat. The more the knee travels forward, the more stress is being placed on the knee. That's a real thing. But it didn't take into account that the body adapts to stress. Like that's how we get stronger in general. What it kind of took from that was like stress equals danger, stress equals injury. And so at that time, people saw that and just like, don't ever squat below parallel. Don't go, let your knees go over your toes. Very dangerous. And then from there, I mean, I definitely don't have numbers to back this up, but from there, you'd see a ton of increased knee injuries across the board. People stop training their knees, stop becoming as resilient within their knees, and were more susceptible to injury as a result of that because they weren't training and stimulating and using that stress as a tool, basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how I see it is, you know, regardless of what it is that you're struggling with, there's a way to, if you look at any joint, any joint being loaded without the support from the surrounding muscles, that's not good. The muscles are there to support the joints and take on the loading. You don't want to load your, so like when it comes to spinal flexion stuff, it's very much the same way. Although your spine is meant to round, you shouldn't be loading your spine without the use of your muscles. Your muscles are what should be taking on that loading. So if you're not bracing as you're going down and like maintaining good tension through your core, through your core, your trunk, your legs, your hips, you're going to feel some type of way about that. Like it's not going to be very good. And over time, like your joints, your discs are taking that stress, which is not what we want. We want the tissues to take the stress. So that's kind of what it all is when it comes to like, there are no dangerous positions. There's just a lack of preparedness. It's like, how much did you prepare your tissues to withstand the stress that you're putting on it? Or is it like your tissues aren't ready for that, so your joints are going to take more than they should be taking at this point?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So what you're saying is that it doesn't mean that technique doesn't have a place, obviously, because if you are going down into a squat, a very heavy squat, like you said, you need to stack your body to prepare for the load that you're moving from full extension all the way down through the full end range and then coming back up. That control, which is what we first started this conversation talking about, being in that controlled position. But there is room for preparedness within the different flexions of the way that the body moves and the way that the joints move.
Right.
You don't only want to be so linear because that's not where all of the preparedness is. That is, the preparedness comes before the actual need for the technique and the muscles to support underneath these super heavy loads or lifting heavy loads. And I think that that might be the missing piece where primal mobility talks about mobility is not the same as flexibility. Is flexibility great? Sure, yes. But how do you get stronger and prepare the muscles within those deep ranges of motion with the control and all those type of things? I think like for me personally, that was like the missing piece, or the thing that I didn't realize I was missing, because I'm like, flexibility, great. Technique, great. Everybody should be good. And then, but also experiencing myself, the injuries that I've experienced and whatever. But I'm like, everyone is always like, your technique is great. I'm like, great. Why am I still getting injured? Why am I still in so much pain? Because if the technique is running solo and is not prepared with the tissues and the muscles and all those type of things, it didn't matter how good my technique was. So what I'm learning from you is that it's the preparedness of the way that the body is supposed to move to prepare you to be in that good technique for when you move the body underneath that weight.
Yeah, technique is present everywhere, right? Like keep that in mind too. Just because we're exposing ranges of motion that are weak, generally like commonly weak, and moving through patterns that are very uncommonly stimulated and challenged, doesn't mean that we're doing so without technique. Like technique really comes down to moving strategically through these positions, right? And again, at the end of the day, we're trying to stimulate the tissues, not just stress the joints. But yeah, 100%. Like I mean, technique can be all good and everything's good there. But again, when it comes down to loading exceeds load bearing capacity, that's where pain and injury comes from. So, you know, and there's an interesting like debate in my mind that I don't even know what to answer or how to answer it, or I don't know the answer. Is like, if your technique was flawless, would there be injury? Would there potentially be injury? Like if there was like 0 degrees of your body moving outside of like the perfect technique of whatever pattern you want to talk about, would there be injury? And it's hard to say. Like, I would think so, possibly still. Like if you're loading your, like exactly what we're saying, like if you're loading your tissues beyond what they're currently capable of, whether you move perfectly fine or not, there's still potential for injury. But it's, I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting.
Whose technique? Because I mean, if you were to pull up James Hobart air squat, I can't fucking move like that. My air squat doesn't look like that.
Well,
you put a PVC to pipe in his hands.
The individual.
Well, that's what I mean. Is it like air squat technique or your technique? And your technique is progressive as well as you become more comfortable with the movement, right? It changes. But I know what you mean. I'm just being an asshole.
Air squat wouldn't ever really exceed load. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I wouldn't.
Well, you should have said me 10 years ago. It absolutely did.
It's still possibly, like, potentially certain ranges of motion.
Yeah.
Right? Certain ranges of motion are prepared to be loaded with your body weight, right? Like if you've never trained knee over toe and then you bounce at the bottom of a body weight squat with your knees well past your toes, something might happen.
You can feel that one, yeah.
You'll hear it.
For sure. All right, guys, before we get out of here, I just want to go back to the cycle that we had started with, the control cycle, to make sure that we didn't, I mean, I know the conversation went all over the place, but I freaking love it. So
we're notorious for that.
It's okay, but it's perfect. It's exactly the type of conversation and type of podcast that we are. So it works. I just want to quickly, I mean, I know we probably could have like a full podcast on each one of these breakdowns of, you know, each day, but you really do in Primal talk about every part of the body. So Monday, you have the groin and ankle control. Then on Tuesday, it's the spine, the front rack position. Then Wednesday, hip extension, glute activation, deep overhead control, and then big 3 and squat control, ankles, hips, and spine. Usually when you think of control, I think we all think of just the back, or control within the midline, control within the hips. But you break it all the way down to the control in the ankle. Why do you do that? And why do we focus on the ankle control?
I mean, if you look at how your body's challenged in your training, there's countless patterns that are relevant, like where the ankles are relevant, right? Like from the squat, obviously, to like double unders and any like running, anything jumping related, lunges, all of this stuff, like it's relevant. And it also has a large influence on how the rest of your body moves as a whole. So like if your ankles aren't performing appropriately, then your tibia isn't going to be able to rotate appropriately. And then your knee is going to take on more stress. And then that's going to carry on to how you actually squat. So you're going to shave on your range of motion, and maybe you're going to squat more with your hips elevated and more stress on your low back. And then like you try to snatch and your torso's so far forward, your shoulders have to catch way back here. And then you tear something in your shoulder, all because you weren't letting your knees go past your toes in your squat, right? So it's like, it's relevant. It makes a huge difference. And that's like, that right there is the heart of our approach. It's rooted in biomechanics and strength. That's what we do. Like we isolate the bigger picture movement patterns or positions and distill them down into their like independent biomechanics. And then we address those with strength and control-based movements. And then we kind of rebuild the pattern from there and apply it to the barbell and to your training. So it doesn't matter we focus on 4 major joints, mostly 3. but like 4 major joints across the body: ankles, hips, thoracic spine, and shoulders. Especially in the primal WOD, those 4 are hit on every single week. And if you address those, if you address those things, most issues across the body, like, of course, you're gonna have to address them in various different ways because every joint has various different functions. Like, you can't just do your hip extension, like stretch out your hip flexors. Like, rotation is incredibly important.
And incredibly weak. Those hurdles, I could not even lift my knee off the ground. And like, I would hover for a second and then I would start to rotate, and that cramp level was like intense. It was so bad. Jonathan Ortega, so what you're saying is I need to buy Primal for myself. That is exactly what we're saying. Use code GTP27. But this is a really good question too. Will I get stronger Achilles? Since I tore it, it's still super weak. That goes back to the question of, and I don't know if you guys have heard it, it's been brought up on many different podcasts and conversations of, you see so many CrossFit athletes rupturing their Achilles. And some people are saying that it's because of the lack of preparedness in the ankles, but they're not rebounding anymore. Remember, they took out the rebounding to try to prevent injury. Do you think, from your own personal perspective, both of you, do you think that that has actually been a hindering factor and has actually caused more injury because they're not rebounding anymore? The only time they're really rebounding is double unders, right? You're rebounding in a double under. Box jump ups, but you're still stepping down. They're not doing that impact rebounding anymore. Do you guys think that that has been a part of it? All the injuries?
I think so.
Yeah.
There's so much value in rebounding for all your joints and your tendons in particular, right? Like, if you could do rebounding, so in the sense that we're talking about it, we're talking about like just from the Achilles perspective. So it's like straight leg or relatively straight leg bouncing. There's so much value to like doing rebounding stuff for your hips, for your knees as a whole. So like, you could do like quarter squat rebounds, right? You could do just like so many different jumping stuff. And I love to implement that stuff in part of my warm up. And honestly, it's almost like a strategic approach, but especially when I'm training at home, because I don't normally do this when I'm at the gym. I don't feel like I need it as much. But when I'm training at home, like, the first thing I'll do is like 100 just like pogo jumps. And it's not because I'm like trying to train my Achilles or my knees. I know the value's there for that stuff, but really it's like I'm trying to get energy. And because like I go to my gym and then I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't want to do any of this stuff right now. I'm just tired. It's usually after lunch and I'm like, a nap sounds a lot better than this. And so I'm like, all right, I need something. And just like the pogo jumps, and I don't know where I'm going at with this, but I just feel like I love that stuff as part of the warm up, just to continue to implement that stuff for your joints, your tendons, and not lose the value that there was there from like the rebounding. When you're jumping off of a box and immediately back up, like, that's a lot of
rebounding. Yeah, a lot of rebounding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of stress placed at the tendons that possibly wasn't ready for that, right? So I could see why there's a ton of injuries happening from that. But like, losing that sucks too, because there's a lot of value in rebound stuff. So if you want to keep the value behind it to reduce the likelihood of injuries and tears, I would do like kind of my approach to it, which is like 100 a day or something like that, where it's just like some rebounds. It's good warm-ups. I mean, I think that it definitely helps me a lot with the energy thing too. Like, if I'm feeling like sleepy and sluggish and I do 50 or 100 rebounds, like, I feel definitely more ready to go mentally and physically. But I think his question was if it's going to help his Achilles.
Will Primal help his Achilles?
Yes, we do a lot of ankle dorsiflexion stuff, which I mean, Colleen could definitely attest to that. We do a lot of ankle dorsiflexion stuff, bent knee and straight knee. Today there was some straight knee, ankle dorsiflexion stuff, which definitely lengthen the
Bent
Achilles.
knee
and
mostly
the
for me
calves.
because we don't straighten my leg that much yet because of my
Right. Well, especially when you're hinged or in spinal flexion.
Yeah.
No
All
lengthening
of
those
my
legs.
hamstring flows. You know, compared to your video and my video, I'm like, there's a reason for it. I'm not supposed to look like this. I'm supposed to do it this way. And so I'm getting more into the hinge position, not so much lengthening out my hamstring, because that just sets my nerve, my sciatic nerve, which I have to say, knock on wood, has felt pretty good lately. It hasn't been too inflamed. I haven't, if anything, it's my hips, like my hip flexors in the front on both sides, and my back, which is always an issue, but more localized, not so much down into the middle of my glute, which it was always when we first started working together. So I feel like that the trajectory and the journey that we're on, that I'm doing, is helping, because I don't feel it so sharp anymore. I still am not feeling anything in my back when I'm squatting, which is really good. But I did feel it on that one weekend that I didn't do gosh damn shit. I did nothing. I did no movement at all. I sat my ass on the couch and I went to go lift, and it sucked because I was excited. It was a heavy, it's supposed to be a new PR for your clean. And I could barely fucking lift the bar because my back was so inflamed and so pissed off at me. So I barely made 135, and then I failed at 145. But the week before, I doubled 135 like it was my bitch. And I was so pissed. I was like, okay, noted. There's no optional movement for the day, even if I don't follow like what you give us. You know what I mean? Like the weekends, for instance, are always optional. I have now like a whole body routine. I'm like, I'm doing these 3 movements for my shoulders. I'm doing these 3 movements for my back. And I'm doing these, 3 to 5 movements for my hips and, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I need to do something. I can't sit on my ass, because it was so eye-opening to go from feeling good and then feeling like I ran into a brick wall. And I was like, oh no. We're not doing this bullshit again. We need to keep moving. And I think Steve was like, yeah, I always move. I do something, at least some sort of movement every day.
Dude, the whole lack of preparedness thing also works the other direction. I can't sit for 8 hours like I used to. Before, like I could sit 8 hours, play video games, no problem. After like an hour now, I'm like, I need to move. I need to get out of here.
Do something, right?
So,
yeah.
Steve, I was on the way to Albany. I'm like,
it was like a 5-hour drive, and we were both like,
yeah.
You guys were all just moving in your seats. What you guys play? Like
we stopped
musical
like 3
chairs
times
in the car, like everybody moves a seat. Okay, rotate next hip, next butt cheek and that kind of stuff. So all right, guys. Well, I don't want to keep you. I gotta go get my kiddo. But thank you guys as always. We'll be back again probably in a couple weeks or whatever to chat it up again. Don't let me forget, and I probably will. I wanted to talk about the pelvic floor this time, and I totally forgot, but I know that's a whole different hour conversation that we could have about the control and stability importance of the pelvic floor. So don't let me forget, chat. Don't let me forget, guys. Don't let me forget. That's really what I want to talk about next time we can all get together. If you have not, Primal Mobility, use code GTP27. The QR code is down there. Paper Street Coffee has a Black Friday sale going on right now. Go check them out. As always, Vindicate supports us. We support him. We love Trav. He's doing his challenge. I think it's 5 or 8 Vindicate items per day. Christmas is around the corner. I think it's his last day of Black Friday. Go support him. We appreciate you guys so much. To the chat, Garrett and Jeremy will be back on tomorrow to talk about all politics shit, which I don't like to talk about. So they're going to talk about all that kind of shit. But until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Adios.